even large production does it this way to some degree. Anyway, the chocolate has multiple components in the cocoa butter. So your idea or your goal is to melt all those components down from this, shape it, let it cool, and get back to this, or whatever shape you want. But you have to slowly melt it. If you get it too hot too quickly, it'll take longer to temper because you often have to re-temper it. So anyway, in the microwave, depending on the size of the batch, you're gonna go 30 seconds, well 25 to 30 second bursts at a time, and it's always on high, which microwaves are already set that to the manufacturer, they're always on high, but you can change that. 30 seconds at a time, 25, 30 seconds. You might do that once or twice, again, depending on the batch size. You might go down to 20 seconds, say the 4th time it goes in the microwave. Each time it goes in and comes out, you're stirring it. This is about to fall off. So you're stirring it. Again, you're slowly melting this or reintroducing the beta-6 crystals is what it's called. That's what this tempered chocolate is in beta-6 crystal form. You're trying to reintroduce just that outer layer as it melts by stirring it, you're reintroducing it to what is already melted. So trying to, like, training it to get back into that form again so it gets shiny and crisp at the end and when it cools. So eventually, you might go down to 15, 10 seconds at a time. You're trying to melt 70% of it. So 70% of what you started with should be fluid, no chunks. But there will be chunks, so 25% of that should be unmelted. So you're still getting 25% of it should still be somewhat like this form, but starting to melt on the outside. Once you get 70% of it melted down, that's when you seed it. Now this is where it goes back to what you guys have done on the Bain Marie. Notice I have not taken any temperatures. It's all by sight. I'm just melting it slowly to 70% melted, and then seeding it. Usually I'll break those up into smaller pieces. What I do seed with. And again, these are tempered chocolate pieces here that we're melting as seed. So reintroducing beta-6 crystals, trying to train what is fluid to set up again in a nice form, shiny and crisp. So at that point, 70% melted, you start reintroducing seed or introducing seed. You'll then slowly melt this down 5-second bursts, because eventually you want to get rid of those little pieces of seed that you put in there. But as soon as you seed, maybe 2 or 3 minutes after you've stirred it around a little bit, and before you put it in the microwave, you can test it to see if it's in temper. Even though there's still seed floating around, you can still test it, because you'll know right now before you even continue if it's going to do that or not. So if this is in temper, it's going to set up 5 minutes or less at room temp. I let you use a fairly thick metal utensil. So this will pull the heat out pretty quickly as opposed to like the thin end of this. So usually handle something, stick it in there, find somewhere to set it up, and 5 minutes or less, we'll see. So right now it's really shiny, and pass this around right where it is towards the middle of that knife. It's starting to set up. So it'll be a little gloss to it, not as shiny as when it's wet, but then you're gonna know. And that was, you know, it was like a minute or less right there. You can start to see it setting up correctly, so you know it's in temper. You still have to melt down what's in here, seeded little chunks. Again, just 5 seconds at a time, barely heat it up. If you heat it up too much, you'll have to, well, this is a general rule, increase or double rather the volume of your chocolate in total. So if I have this amount, I test it, it's not in temper, I need to start again. So I add another big handful of chips and then get it in there probably 20 seconds at a time because part of it's already melted, and then slowly melt it down to 70% melted, then seed it, then test it. So you can reuse the same chocolate, just don't get it too hot that it scorches. If you don't scorch it, you're fine. You should be able to get new chips in there and melt it down again. Always test before you use it. When we do chocolate candies, it goes into a candy mold. It's not going to come out of the mold unless it contracts. That's another property of tempered chocolate. It contracts out of the mold you put it in if it's in temper. If it's not, you got to heat it up, melt it out with a sprayer, water, and it's a mess. So you got to get it in temper before you use it. Test it. So that's a pretty good gloss there. A few of you are trying to push it, which you want. It should set up pretty firm. I told this to a few people, you can also get partial temper. to where you have a little bit of riveting on the outside, so maybe 90% of it's in temper, but a portion of that cocoa butter did not get into temper. You can still bring it back into temper. And now I'd add an even smaller amount of chips, so not doubling the volume, but maybe a quarter or 25% increase, and then melt that down again. 70% melt to seed it again. But you guys have any questions on the microwave tempering? The only problem we have here is we only have one microwave, so plan for that.
No,
and
boy.
it does take some time. And I was able to do this small amount, granted, in about 5 minutes or maybe 6 minutes. So it was only a small amount though, so be ready for that. It could take some time. You'll be in line with some people, or you can go on the bain marie like you've done before. So, and again, reheating this, so everything's melted. If you're trying to hold it for use and it starts to get too cold, just put this in the microwave for 5 seconds again, gently rewarm it. So you can do that, and then bring it to your table and use it. So, all right, okay, thank you.